So the DEA did show up. This is a federal raid. This is a takeover. They have DEA. Apparently someone saw IRS agents walk in first, but I just saw DEA and then all these U.S. Marshals. So it's pretty clear that it's a federal takeover. The local police department isn't even here.
And, you know, it's crazy. Yeah, it does. And so I was watching it, and then I went on Facebook, and Americans for Safe Access had a call for people to come down. And I came in from Walnut Creek.
So you think Obama is pretty much two-faced to say
exactly.
It would end federal raids, and then
exactly. He's going to leave it up for the states.
That they're claiming it's because of IRS taxes when it was on the city's booking that this and Harborside were top 2 out of the top 10. Like there's 4 out of the top 4 paying their taxes.
Well, what it comes down to,
shut them down, they won't have any of that revenue.
Well, exactly, and what it comes down to is the fact that the clubs want to be able to use some of their expenses as tax write-offs, and the IRS won't let them do it. And who runs the IRS and the DOJ and the DEA? It's the federal government. It's Obama. And Obama said in his campaign he was not going to go after clubs. He was going to leave it up to the states.
The problem with addiction and drugs is it's a public health problem. It's not a criminal problem, but the criminal, but by criminalizing the issue of drugs, you create an entire industry within the military, within the police, that satisfies their expansive interest to get the funding for what they're after, which is to incarcerate people on issues that should not be incarcerated for. We have more people in jail per capita than any country in the world. We have, what, 2 million plus 2,000,004 in jail over primarily the drug issue. The other is health care. The Obama healthcare problem is going to dissolve into total failure. What it is, it's a subsidy for the insurance companies. And there's no reason why we have to use insurance companies to provide medical care to the citizens of the country.
This is not run by the feds. See, this is a 10th Amendment issue.
The most important thing that has happened so far, the Supreme Court has upheld the individual mandate, essentially affirming that President Obama's health care law is indeed constitutional, and the Congress did not exceed its authority when it essentially ordered every American to buy health insurance.
To think something so small can connect you to everything that matters.
When your life and all you love
are on the line.
Providing immediate access to your medical records.
Because Bob has trouble remembering all his medications.
Because I'm in love with my kids' kids.
Obamacare has provisions that allow the Secretary of State to decide how the RFID tracking chips are to be used for medical purposes. The definition is so vague that they can expand the use of these chips for connecting to bank accounts, GPS tracking your exact location, really anything that they want.
Is there a vast RFID conspiracy out there that is they would say this is a slippery slope. This is the first thing. This is where you lull us into a false sense of security. We all get these things. And then the next thing you know, I don't know, it's
making
like
Soylent Green.
Like the Trilateral Commission, or the whole world gets taken over, like in Terminator 3 or something. Is anything? I mean, do we need to worry?
There's no conspiracy, Joe.
You sure? I'm sure. I'm looking at you. Look at your eyebrow. It twitches when you say that a little bit.
And I'm looking back at you.
And
let me say this. Let me say this. As far as the RFID industry is concerned,
there's a new movement afoot in Arizona that would allow voters to sort of pick and choose which programs and actions they like and which ones they don't like from the federal government. A group is trying to put an initiative on the ballot that would allow the state to interpret the Constitution and ignore or reject federal action that they think violates the U.S. Constitution. Joining us now is Jack Biltis from the group called Checks and Balances in Government. Thanks for coming down tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
So do I have this right, that what you're proposing is sort of like a buffet style of state government where you go through the line and I don't like the corn, but I'll take the meatloaf? No. And do you think that would work?
Not at all. It's not like that. The state government can't make the federal government do anything. They can't pick and choose laws. They can only act as an extra check and balance against the federal government overreaching. So they can do the same thing that the Supreme Court can do. They can't create new things. They can just say, hey, wait a second, this is the Constitution. You're going a couple steps too far. Proper check and balance, the same way the Supreme Court checks Congress and Congress checks the president and the federal government checks the state governments. State governments have a constitutional duty and right to check the federal government. Having all the parties play by the rules isn't secession. That's a well-ordered society.
But if you reject enough federal law, aren't you kind of getting there?
Well, let me ask you. The federal government passes another law like the Japanese internment camps. Federal government passes another law stopping people from having their civil rights. Isn't it our responsibility?
We can take back our cities. We can say no to sodium fluoride being added along with radium and uranium. Oh, that's added too. You didn't know that? That's now confirmed and admitted. Along with lead and mercury and arsenic. Oh yes, that's the toxic waste that comes out of the aluminum purification and smelting. It's the byproduct. Also, the power plant scrubbers, where they basically shoot a stream of water up in the smokestacks across the furnace release valve, where all that coal smoke filled with mercury and lead and arsenic and uranium and plutonium, because that's where they mine it, is out of coal deposits and limestone deposits. So it's in there naturally, and so it purifies out in this water or condenses out, and then they sell that as something good for your teeth. They call it fluoride.
Voters in Wichita, Kansas used the ballot initiative process to ban fluoridation of their water supply.
Could a strange substance found by a Southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, tonight, KSLA News 12 investigation reporter Jeff Farrell shows us the results of testing we had done about what's in our skies.
It seemed like some mornings it was just crisscrossing the whole sky. It was just like a giant checkerboard.
KSLA News 12 had the sample tested at a lab. The results? A high level of barium, 6.8 parts per million, more than 3 times the toxic level set by the EPA. Armed with these lab results about the high levels of barium found in our sample, we decided to contact the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. They told us that yes, these levels are very unusual. Barium is a hallmark of other chemtrail testing, which even attracted attention from a Los Angeles TV station. There's already no shortage of unclassified weather modification programs by the government. But those who fear chemtrails could be secret biological or chemical testing on the public point to the 1977 Senate hearings in particular, which confirmed 239 populated areas had been contaminated with biological agents between 1949 and 1969. Later, the 1994 Rockefeller Report concluded hundreds of thousands of military personnel were also subjected to secret biological experiments.
Legislation has been drafted that can be altered for any city, county, or state in the nation. It could also be used around the globe that would ban chemtrails, protecting the air and water from aluminum oxide, barium, and other pollutants caused by these aerial sprays. As you can see, the legislation simply has to be drafted in a way that can be accepted legally as an amendment to the Constitution or as a statute. The chemtrail agenda is guised as a way to end global warming. And it is, in fact, disclosed by government agencies that they use toxic chemicals in our skies, and they know it is killing the planet.
The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
Brzezinski helped aid bin Laden and train the Al-Qaeda. Another of the government's allies is Henry Kissinger. He was a supporter of Mao's genocide.
Are we at one of those moments in history in which there is the necessity for a new world order?
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
The elites have an agenda for a new world order, and this comes from their philosophy of global dictatorship, stemming from Nazi Germany. In fact, they plan to impose a Fourth Reich on the entire world and impose a fourth world system. You've heard of the horrors of a third world country. Well, you do not want to look forward to the fourth world, because it is a time of complete bondage and enslavement. And these people who literally worship Lucifer and other demonic entities believe that this gives them control over others, so they can live fulfilling lives by being dominant and manipulating the masses. They have clearly laid out their intentions in the Georgia Guidestones, the plan to shrink the population down to 500 million, which is a 90% reduction in world population today. They're using every weapon that they can. I know this sounds unreal, but just Google the word fascist symbol and see what symbolism you find. It's right there in the Hall of Congress.
Now we're going to get to some enhanced video, and we'll go play by play through some of the more occultic statements, like "we shall read the sign in your burned effigy, the bound body." That's exactly what the Druids actually did. They would roast cats, goats, oxen, horses, and watch the pain of how they died, and from this extract some type of mystical energy force or power, and also be able to tell the future.
Owl of Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel.
Upon further research of the ritual you just witnessed, it becomes clear. It is a mixture of the Babylonian Canaanite cult of Moloch fused with ancient Druidic rites, where you have the female side of Satan, which they first call out to in the she, and then towards the horn god with the he, mixed with Masonic rites from Scotland. Here we have some more enhanced video as the boatman, again with his face painted up like a skull, pulls his boat across the small lake towards the high priest, with the red of his cloak visible, with his hand outstretched as if he is pulling the damned soul towards him as they throw off their cares, their conscience for what they have to do in the world.